Michael, welcome. Great to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. So we always start these by learning a little bit more about the background. Can you tell us how you came to Calix in your career background?
Yes, so I was at Salesforce at the time. I was running customer success for about half of the business globally and really focused on small and medium companies. And I got a call from Korn Ferry and they said, there's this company that would really like to talk to you about a transformation that they're going through. And if you look at my history, I'm a bit of a transformation expert. That seems to be the place that I go to all the time. And I looked at the website and I said, well, I'm not quite sure. It's a hardware company and it's in telco. I'm not sure if that's the thing I want to do. And they said, no, talk to the CEO. And a 1 hour conversation went on for 3 hours. And then we met the next week. And I actually had a number of job offers and I walked from them all. And I said, I'm actually really interested in what Calix is doing. And especially after I talked to the founder and CEO, Carl Russo, who really had a vision for transforming the company from a hardware company into a cloud and software company and completely changing the broadband industry. So that's how I landed here 6 years ago.
6 years ago. And so you did bring, because you're right. I mean, if you look at Calix then to now, I would argue that you're much more a very cloud-centric company. So some of the Salesforce pixie dust has landed over here. Sure. And maybe just tell us about the main pillars of that transition, how you made it.
Sure. It absolutely did. So when I met Carl, he was halfway through it. So this has been an 11-year journey and over $1 billion worth of investment. And one of the things, the reason why he pursued me and why we got along so well is because he knew that to change a company, it's really about leadership and then all the experiences that those leaders bring. And so as he and I started to talk about the company that he envisioned Calix becoming, again, a cloud and software company that would transform the broadband industry, he knew that, and he looked at my experience, and as we spoke, all those experiences would come to the fore from Microsoft and from Salesforce around how to take that last 5 years and 6 years of work and bring it over the line. So while he knew that he had to build a platform company, while he knew cloud and software, he didn't understand or wanted help with where the last step. And so as we went through that transformation, we really did to some extent take what is the Salesforce model and how they built the company and applied the same thing into Calix. So if I look at Salesforce and how Benioff built the company, again, it was fascinating moving from a Salesforce customer at Bell Canada to a Salesforce employee and hearing him and everything and how he changed that culture and drove growth in the company. There were, in my opinion, 3 things that really make Salesforce what Salesforce is. The first thing is that right from the get-go, and you can look at the first book he wrote, he talks a lot about this. His first goal was I needed to build a platform company. And so a platform company is around abstracting from many technologies and making yourself readily available for the second part, which is become an ecosystem company. And so Salesforce has done those very well. You know, people who buy Salesforce, they kind of buy it for their core technology, but really you're buying Salesforce for the ecosystem, which is the 4,000 and 5,000 partners who are built all around that platform. I know when I was a customer, that's the reason why I selected it. And then the last thing that Salesforce did really well was they focused on small business right from the get-go, because he knew that if he allowed a big company to become his first customer, they would make him do all kinds of weird things that wouldn't allow him to build the technology that would scale. And the reality is that technology built for big companies never scales down, but technology built for small companies scales up. And so if you look at what we've done, we literally took those 3 lessons and applied it. First, we built the platform. So we have 2 platforms. One is a fully abstracted, the world's only fully abstracted network operating system, and clouds affiliated with it, which allow us to radically change the dynamics of the network. And then the other side is we built a premises platform that allows you to deliver great experiences, and we tie those 2 together with the cloud. So we built a platform, and the second step that we went through is actually building the ecosystem. And that's where we bring all of these partners together, tie them into our platforms, and then make that technology widely available to all of our customers. And this is a huge transformation, especially in telco, because if you think about telco in the past, what the little guys have really struggled with is that the big companies had everybody calling on them. Netflix would call on them, and anybody who would wanted to, right? They go to the big companies and they say, hey, you have 5, 10 million subscribers. We'll do whatever it takes to integrate into your back office and allow you to pitch our technologies. But the littles and the small and medium service providers really struggled with that. First, they didn't have the funds to integrate those technologies. And second, no one would return their calls. I heard this over and over again, where I had a customer when we partnered finally with Arlo and are integrating them into our platform around home security and web cameras. We had a whole bunch of service providers say, you know what? I called Arlo like 15 times and they never returned my call. Why? Because Arlo would look at a small service provider who's got, 5, 10, or even 100,000 customers and say, it's not worth it for me to do that one-off integration. So that's what we've done, is completely transform this market by giving these partners an ecosystem to integrate with, or a platform to integrate with, so that they can offer their services to the small service provider. And that completely changes the dynamics of the market. And then the last part is small and scale up. The same technology, when this is something, again, having a founder lead your organization is really big, because when I partnered with him, we became partners on everything that we could do, and he could really force, I'm the largest shareholder, therefore we're going to do the right things for the company over the long term, which includes making a $1.1 billion investment over 11 years, right? And the one thing he was adamant about was, we will build for the small companies, we will build for markets, and we will scale the technology up. And we're really proud to say that the same technology that Verizon sole sourced their entire next generation network on, which is Calix, that same technology that runs Verizon's next generation fiber network is also running in Cedar Falls, a small company that has thousands of subscribers. And that really epitomizes what the power of a platform is if you do it right.
And that's perfect segue into my next question, because while certainly you have many large clients and customers, you also see significant value in the smaller ones. And I think actually you and I met at a conference, which is more geared to very small telcos, co-ops, etc.
Sure.
Can you tell us what you're seeing out of that customer segment?
Well, we think that is our primary focus, is small and medium service providers. And when I say medium service providers, that's really service providers with less than 1 million subscribers. And we think that that's a really powerful segment. And bluntly, we think that they're actually going to overturn the large service providers, and not the large legacy service providers. And the reason why is because if you think about it, if you now adopt our technology and our platforms, you now have an innovation engine that's never been built before, which is moving at an incredibly rapid pace. To understand the pace of innovation that we're driving, we currently have 7 managed services that a service provider can bring into their market. We will release 8, 9, and 10 over the next through the end of the year. What does that mean? That means the service provider can go and implement our technology, drive amazing operating operating margins, because it's so efficient, but then has 10 services to put on top of their network, which they can provide as experiences, which drive down churn and drive awesome incremental revenue. Now compare that to the big service providers. Their whole history is, I build it myself. I will only do bespoke integrations. And every time I launch a new service, it takes me 24 to 36 months to get a service out. So their ability to compete, and this is what we've seen over and over again, their ability to compete with companies who have platforms and clouds, it doesn't exist. They have their size and they hold their bulk, but they cannot innovate. They can't innovate at the pace of a Google. They can't innovate at a pace of an Amazon. We are. And so that's why I think there's a huge market dynamic shift that we're seeing, where the big service provider is actually going to be significantly disadvantaged on the go forward, because these little service providers, they get that technology, they get it in quickly, and then they offer those services. And then the last part, and this is really another I'll say this is another thing I learned from Salesforce. I happen to run this business. The last part of that is customer success. Is big companies have a bad habit of thinking that they know everything and that they don't listen. Whereas the small service provider knows, hey, I've got 100 people on my team. Any help I can get, bring it on, right? So when you have a customer success organization that's constantly going in and saying, Jennifer, we have all these best practices that we can help you on marketing, help you run your call center, do all these different things. What are you going to do if your call center is yourself and like 10 people? You're going to say, bring it on. I'll do that. Oh, you mean that you're going to tell me what I shouldn't do and where other people have failed, and you're going to tell me what I should do and do it quickly? Absolutely, I will. And so I think that's the other dynamic, is that we love working with these service providers because they're very open to feedback. But the other part too is everything that we do in our customer success organization is actually the best practices that another service provider brings to the market. And that's what's also incredible about this marketplace, is that it's really a community, because it's all of these small and medium service providers really fighting the large legacy companies and banding together as a team and sharing and helping each other, because often they don't compete themselves.
And that is all true, but also, would you agree that, versus even 2 years ago, some of these large telecom legacy companies now have woken up to fiber? I assume they are also boons for your business. AT&T comes to mind, CenturyLink, or excuse me, now Lumen.
So, but I think fiber is the wrong conversation, to be honest.
Okay.
And I'll give you the reason why. So I've had this question asked to me more times than I can count, where I've had companies say to me, what's the right speed? I'm trying to decide, when I build my next network, do I do 1 gig or I do 10 gig? And, do I do 50 gig? Like whatever, speed. The industry is drunk on speed, right? And it's absolutely wrong thinking. Speed, every time I get that question, I say, speed doesn't matter. And speed doesn't matter for this reason. When the market was all DSL, which was technology, for people who are on this who don't know, DSL is like 40 megs, 50 megabits, right? And what happened with the people who had 40 and 50 megabits? If you try to do video conference and all these other things, it was lethargic. And why? So you had a really bad experience. Did you understand 40 or 50 megabits? If you were in our industry, you did. But if you're an average consumer, you had no idea what 50 meg is. You don't understand the difference between download and upload. All you know is your experience sucked, right?
Yeah.
And so cable comes in. And why has cable done so well over the last decade? Because the experience was so radically different than what I had on DSL. And then on top of that, what companies like Comcast did incredibly well is Comcast spent, I don't know how much they've invested on Xfinity, but it's got to be north of $1 billion, at least, because it's all custom that they built. But they also built a whole video experience on top of that, which was integrating Netflix and all these different things. They were the amazing mic on your remote control, all those different things. So again, why'd you go to Comcast? We did it because of the fact that DSL was a terrible experience. I couldn't do the things I wanted. And I got this amazing video experience from Comcast Xfinity. It was beautiful. Like, they have a beautiful UI, all those things. And for the experience is why you changed. So imagine if you're now going after a cable market and you just put in fiber. Who's going to change? We all believe as network people, like I hear these network people talk about it all the time. Oh my gosh, well, fiber is so much better than cable. And I'm like, why? Explain to me in your perspective why. Well, because 1 gig fiber is symmetric. So it's 1 gig up, 1 gig down, and cable's 1 gig down and 30 megs up, and it's shared and all those different things. And I said, so you understand that, and a small portion of your customers understand it. Do you really think the average consumer who's on a cable right now actually understands it? And the reality is they don't. When a fiber provider comes into a cable market, they generally get 30 to 40% market share without too much effort. Why? Because the cable provider has not provided good service. And therefore someone switches. Oh, I hear fast and all those kind of things. And there's generally a price offer and blah, blah, blah. And then I switch. So you get this initial shift. And then what happens? Growth grinds to a halt. Why? Because if the service provider is not thinking about how do I completely transform that experience with the fiber technology and all the other things that I've done in there, if I don't transform that experience, there's no reason to change. And so I think that's what we're coming up against in our industry, Jennifer, is we're going to bang against this big wall because everyone's talking about, I'm going to go do 10 gig XGS. Oh my gosh, it's going to drive it. It's not. It's not going to drive a massive market shift. It just isn't. What investing in XGS is a capital decision, so you don't have to touch fiber for the next 20 years. That's purely what it is. You're making a capital, and because in essence capital is essentially free, right? You take all the different people investing in this market, there's so much capital available. Hey, why wouldn't I do that? That way I can focus my business on what's important, which is driving market share by delivering an incredible experience.
And you mentioned the money coming to the sector. I mean, it's clearly unprecedented when you look at the different pots of money. There's BEAD, there's RDOF, the list goes on. How is that? I mean, how are your customers, especially the smaller ones, are they leveraging that enough? I mean, because sometimes when so much capital rains down on a sector, it can create some bad actors. Are you seeing any of that?
No, I think, look, we've been through government funding cycles many, many times, right? And we're just starting to see some of that money flow. But the reality is that money is going to take 10 years to flow. The real money coming into the sector is actually private investment. It's actually private investment and banks shifting their view of small and medium service providers. There is, if you are a competent operator, there's no reason why you can't find a private equity partner, a family investment fund, or go to a bank, because the banks are willing to, they don't see risk here, they see opportunity, and generate a lot of money. And so the capital that's flowing into the market has nothing to do with government funding. The government funding is going to be gas on the fire, but it's going to be a slow gas on the fire. It's going to take 10 years to flow out. Yeah. And so right now, this is all because of the fact that smart investors are seeing a huge opportunity. Because again, let's go back to that fiber. So, what we generally see is that if a end consumer, back to speed doesn't matter, if an end consumer is given a choice between a 1 gig and 100 meg service, what generally happens is about 20% of them pick a gig, and then 60% of them pick a middle package, and then 20% are 100 meg or lower. What shifts all of that is, again, when you put a software and cloud platform on top of it, that provides all of these incremental services. And when you have data and analytics to understand your end subscriber, to know what to sell to whom so that they can have a great experience, that's really where the opportunity arises. And, as investors look at this, the reasons why the investors are flowing in here is we talk to them and we say, hey, stop. I get it. Broadband's a great investment because it's a long life investment for you, right? I buy that piece of glass into the consumer. And then I go 1 gig, I go 10 gig, I go 50 gig, fine. It's easy. It's relatively low cost to upgrade, but it's a good long life investment. But the real opportunity is all the stuff that you can do on top of it by transforming. If you can get a great broadband service provider who understands experience is the thing. And because we have completely changed the dynamic and finally made it possible, it has never been possible before. And now that it is possible because we aggregate all of the partners and make them easily available to a service provider. So even the smallest service provider with like 500 subscribers can have as great a service offering as anything that a multi-billion-dollar Comcast offers, right? And so that's where I think the real opportunity is, and that's why there's so much money flowing into our sector beyond the government.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, that touches my life. From the infrastructure fund, enthusiasm that's not waned in the slightest, even with kind of choppy economics. Edge, I just wanted to quickly ask about the Edge theme. Does Calix play on the Edge? Is that a theme you think is overhyped, or definitely a growing, tangible opportunity?
The Edge? Do you mean actually
network edge, smaller connection, like further densification? because this is where wireless hits wires. You know, you can't
Well,
really
I
have
think,
privacy
look,
with what you provide.
well, so we have, so I actually think that the majority of consumers that will get fiber,
Mhm.
especially with the significant private investment and others that are coming. I also think that, again, if the investor looks at the opportunity that a broadband service provider who's actually partnered with a platform company like us, what they can actually achieve from a margin of profit point of view over the long term, it's a no-brainer because it's such a great low-risk long-term offer. And then again, if you have great services, you really have no competitors because you have no churn, right? And I'll give you a good example. We have one customer who has steadily been, and they're a mid-sized company, a couple 100,000 subscribers. They have seen their churn almost go to nothing. It's at like 0.5%, and the reason, or 0.7 or something like that. And the reason why it's dropped from like 2 down to this is because their NPS is now 70. And when they have a customer who has multiple services from them and their current broadband, then they never churn. In fact, they had a big cable company attack them aggressively with a low price offer and door knockers and all those kind of things. And they had no churn, even though that campaign had 30 door knockers in the town for a month, and they got almost nobody. And the reason why is because incredible service, great value-added managed services on top of it, a great network that's reliable because people want reliable when they're learning at home and working at home. And so I think that's a big long-term investment. So I think fiber goes everywhere. The edge cases of where wireless makes sense, there's going to be some cases where that makes sense. I think satellite is good if you're on a boat or you are in the Antarctic. But beyond that, the simple reality is when you do the math on Starlink, 12,000 satellites means that at any point in time in North America, you've got 4,800 customers who have a gigabyte. So, extrapolate that over a population of 330 million at 30 million Canadians, and you're at 360 million. And so 4,800 concurrent connections at 1 gigabit is not a pipe, right? That's a super niche technology. And so I think fiber will go everywhere. And what's fascinating to me is that especially in the not-for-profit areas. So if you see cooperatives, I had one customer who, went end to end with Calix when they built their broadband company, and they've been so wildly profitable that he's actually brought his whole investment case forward, and how he's running 3,000 and 4,000 meter single customer fiber runs out to farms because they're very focused on the community. And he goes, because we're so community centric, even though that's like a 30-year ROI, we want to do it because we want to cover the whole community. So.
Michael, last question. Just because you have such experience and different angles here, what is the one thing you're seeing from your seat that might not be appreciated from my customers, from the infrastructure side, that most excites you?
Kind of what we've been talking about the whole time, which is everybody looks at this as an infrastructure investment. They look at it like a bridge, right? So yeah, I'm buying a bridge, I'm buying fiber, and I'm looking at that as a long-term investment. And I think what everybody's missing out, because it's never been possible before. That's the reason why. We're the first ones to ever do it, where now the service provider finally can offer a plethora of service on top of that infrastructure and participate in the monetization. In the past, all the monetization on a network was actually done over the top, right? You see all these applications, all those kind of things. But now there's a plethora of services that you as the consumer and that me as the consumer, I really want my service provider to give me that high touch managed experience. And that is a huge revenue opportunity. Let me just give you a simple example. I talked about Arlo. Arlo, launched a full home security solution in January at one CES. In Q1 next year, we'll be launching that so that a small service provider can now be have a full offering of managed security for your home. So Jennifer, now your service provider can say to you, okay, I've got the broadband in the home. I have incredible Wi-Fi that I manage, and I can see all of your devices. I can see when you're having problems. If you're out by the pool and your iPhone's having problems, I actually get a notice that, you know what, you need some to extend it, all those kind of things. So I give you the great management of Wi-Fi. Then I give you virus protection for your home so that I can stop all the nasty stuff from coming into your house. Oh, and then on top of that, if you have children, I can offer you 2 forms of parental controls. One is just basics to block the nasty websites, but then I can partner with Bark. Bark is, if you haven't looked at them, bark.io. So it's all around cyberbullying and all those things. So if you've got like an 11 or 10-year-old, now you can be engaged with that parent. I can give you that around so that you can manage your child's life. And then I also say, and by the way, would you like us to help you with police, the fire, CO2, keep your windows going, protect use web cameras to make sure you're secure, and on and on and on and on. And so
it is like, it's the infrastructure investors thinking they're only buying a bridge with enough gravy that they're not really appreciating and cherry on top that they could have with this quote unquote bridge investment, if I'm understanding you.
Yeah. So I'm going to make one up right on the spot. So what they're doing instead is they're actually buying a bridge with a mall attached to it. Right.
Oh.
And so maybe you have to drive through the mall to get across the bridge. That's really the way to think about it. And that mall is owned by the bridge owner. Right. There is all of these incremental sales. It's kind of like, when you check out at the grocery store, why is all that stuff stacked there and how much do you grab as you go out? Well, it's because you're already there and I'm engaged and I trust that vendor. It's the exact same thing. I trust you to get over the bridge. Well, I'm going to trust you to help me with all these other things. Maybe wash my car, fill my gas, all that kind of stuff. Same idea.
That's great. Well, I love that analogy. In fact, I might use it myself. But I think
I might use it in the future too. So we co-authored it together today. How's that?
Well, you're on an exciting path to watch, Michael. Thank you so much for the time. This was awesome.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Jennifer. Have a great day.